What's up, folks? Welcome to another episode of the 10 Horse Money YouTube channel. And my nose is running. We're gonna be throwing this today for a little while. Could change, who knows. Air temps, well, I saw 32 degrees on the way here. I think it's warmed up to a balmy 35 degrees, but it feels like 29 or something. It's cold, man. Overcast, the air is damp. It's wintertime. It is wintertime. Happy New Year, everybody. 2024 is here. We're gonna throw a little jig around for a little while. Like I said, this is just a little finesse jig by Cumberland Pro Lures. A little Crock Gator ring crawl. Just gonna do a little finesse fishing. Got a Ned rig rigged up, and I got, you know, all the other stuff. Hopefully I won't have to throw an Alabama rig, but if I have to, I will. But we're just gonna cover some water with a jig, and don't have a lot of time as usual. Slept in, just couldn't get out here. You know, it's so dang cold. But gotta go to work tomorrow, and I need to get out here, recharge my mind. So put our heads down, see if we can come across a few fish. There we go. Back over in here, right there, black and blue. Caught us one. No jig. Caught us one. I didn't even want to touch him. It's so dang cold out here. This is a little Cumberland Pro. Little runt finesse jig. I had it really finessed out. And just throwing a little Crock Gator ring crawl. Not the biggest fish in the lake, but man, it is well needed to keep me awake. Oh, that was fun. That's a good bite. It's a little tick. My hands are half-ass numb. Oh, that's a good fish. Dang it. Set a little too hard with this 10-pound test. That's a good fish. Uh-oh, I feel like a bite. That's a bite. Bumped it. There we go. Fish. That stump. Come here, buddy. There we go. Okay. Oh, pretty solid fish. The jig right in the roof of their mouth. I'm trying to make this jig work, and it's been slow. Just throwing a 1/4 ounce. I lost my 3/8 ounce broke it off on a pretty good fish, and just got that little Crock and Gator ring crawl. Galaxy's the color, so it's black and blue. The little runt, finesse jig, and that's a decent fish. It's a decent fish. There's a little stump out there, and I popped it off that stump, and I just felt it tick, and sure enough, just sucked it in. Water temps are 44 degrees. Air temp is like 34, and it's cold. Just got this little, well, it ain't little, but it's a Virtus Jewel Acura. This is their spinnerbait finesse jig rod, and I've been throwing this with 15-pound test on it so I can throw a spinnerbait, but I'm not going to be throwing a spinnerbait for a while, so I put 10-pound test, and it's fun. It's real responsive, but I just got to remember to not set the hook so hard so I don't break those fish off. What's crazy is all these clothes that I got on, still cold. A couple things I want to talk about that pertain to this video, and these are things that I think are really important, and I have to remind myself a lot of times when I go fishing of these two simple things. I went over there with a preconceived notion. I wanted to throw a jig. I haven't thrown a jig a whole lot lately, so a jig is relaxing. It's kind of meditative, and I just felt like throwing a jig. Sometimes you just feel like throwing a bait, right? Whether it's the right bait or not. So I started out with this Cumberland Pro Lures little runt finesse jig and a little ring crawl by Crock or Gator. And this is a magic crawl. I threw it for probably an hour, had a couple bites on it, but I just couldn't get them to commit to it, and I made a change. I went to a black and blue jig. It's called Galaxy. Same jig, the Cumberland Pro Lures little runt finesse jig, which by the way is a great all-around jig, but it's really good in the cold water. So I caught a couple fish on that, right? But it still wasn't going on. I gave it about 3 hours, guys. I mean, I really wanted to, do a little jig fishing. So that brings me to my first point. Got to know when the fish are on the bottom or are the fish suspended. The best way to do that is to go and idle around and kind of get a feel for things. And if you're fishing, pay attention to your graph, especially your down scan. On my boat up front, I don't have side scan, I just have down scan, and of course I have the live scope, so I'm able to look out, but really pay attention to what the fish are doing. If you don't have live scope, you just got a side scan or down scan, kind of look around, maybe idle through a section, see if you see some bait up higher in the water column or up off the bottom, get a feel for whether those fish are up or down. If you're not seeing a lot of bait, chances are the bait is on, sucked to the bottom, and the bass will be sucked to the bottom as well. It's hard. I'm not a professional fisherman, #NoPro by any means, and I get to fish once a week if I'm lucky. Sometimes twice a week, but mainly once a week. So when I go fishing, I really want to go fishing. I just want to ride a line, and I want to get out there and get after it right away. But I have to remind myself to be patient and do a little bit of idling to try to get a feel for things, or as I'm fishing, really pay attention to what's going on in my surroundings. So the fish on this day were not responding very well to a jig. So that tells me I need to pick up something different. I need to be throwing something suspended or up in that water column a little higher. And that's when I decided to go to the jerkbait. No brainer this time of the year, cold water, jerkbait is one of the best baits to be throwing, but you can still catch some good fish on a jig. Make no doubt about it. There are days when this sucker will outperform this, but you got to know whether the fish are on the bottom or the fish are suspended. Another thing, point 2, sometimes the fish just want to feed up. So I saw a fish on the bottom on this day, and I couldn't get him to bite this jig, but I could get them to come up off the bottom and hit this thing. And this is something you'll see. It happens quite often. Just because the fish are on the bottom doesn't mean they want something dragging on the bottom. A lot of times they want something sitting, a couple feet up over their head. They just want to feed up. They're sitting on the bottom. If this jig is coming across them, sometimes they just don't want to pay attention to it. But if this thing comes across the top, this jerkbait comes across the top, I've seen it so many times where they rise up and grab it. Now, obviously, in the wintertime, there's not a lot of crawfish moving around, and this mimics a crawfish. It also mimics a bluegill, but mimics a crawfish. They're feeding on shad quite often in the wintertime, especially when that water gets like the mid to lower 40s. It pretty much changes exclusively to a shad diet, in my opinion. There's just not a lot of crawfish moving around for the most part. There's some days when you get some sunny, 2 or 3 sunny days, maybe the crawfish will start stirring around a little bit. But for the most part, they are feeding on shad. So they do have a tendency to want to feed up. It happens in the fall, and it definitely happens in the winter. So just because you're seeing fish on the bottom doesn't mean they're going to bite a jig. And if you're seeing that happen, you may have to make some adjustments and throw that jerkbait. So subscribe to the channel if you have not. Let's get back into the video. And this is where I made a critical adjustment that allowed me to catch quite a few fish. All right, folks, a little midday report. It's been kind of slow. You know, I've been throwing that jig around. I was really coming over here to try to get a jig bite, and I'm getting a few bites on it, but I just picked up a jerkbait, pulled up this point, and I'll show you what I'm looking at here on the Devil Scope 666. You can see a little brush pile up there. As you pan around, there's just some fish relating to this grass. They're sitting on that hard spot on the bottom. As I'm throwing that jerkbait over the top of them, they're coming up off the bottom and looking at it. See, there we go. There's some fish down there. Not giants. You can see some fish right in here, but we're gonna throw at them, see if we can snatch one. Sitting right up there. If I can get that jerkbait to go right through here, I think I can probably catch a couple. Mixing it up, switch to the jerkbait, and decent fish. Fish hammered it on the paws. A little group of them out there on this point. Okay, now's the part I don't like, where you have to get your hands all wet. Okay, fat little guy. There we go, little jerkbait fish. Man, I don't even really want to touch any fish because my hands are so dang cold. It's pretty bad, but work really hard to get a bite, and you get one you don't even want to. I gotta take my gloves off. Oop, coming up after it, I think. Well, there's some good ones up on that point. There he is. Nice. They're stacked up on that point. They're stacked up. Man, I gotta take my gloves off again. We count them. We count them. We're mixing it up. A few bites on the jig. Maybe on the jerkbait. See how many fish we can catch on this one point. There's a good jerkbait. Looks like they're coming up to look at it. Ooh, they're all over it. Come on. Uh-oh. Come on, come on. Got him. I saw that fish come up off the bottom. Better fish. That was sweet. Fish was sitting on the bottom of that point. Couldn't even really see him, and then all of a sudden he just came up. Yeah, better fish. That was awesome. He's gonna stay right here for a little bit. Oh, mega bass hooks, get them good. Just don't want to get too wet. Take my gloves off. Come here. A decent fish. Oh, God, my hands ain't even working. They're damn near numb. Okay. All right, there we go, folks. We just found this little point, and there's some fish just stacked up on it. You know, I saw them on the forward-facing sonar, and I'm not actually seeing them eat the bait. Like, actually, this one I saw come up off the bottom, and kind of had to look away and just focus on my line. But they're hitting it really good. They're hitting it really good. It's like 35 degrees out here. It's cold. But, you know, as long as you get a biter once in a while, it keeps you awake. Really digging this rod. If you guys are looking for a new jerkbait rod, this is definitely one you would want to consider. This is the Versus Jewel. It's the Blue Diamond series, and it's just their stick bait rod. It's 6'8" medium bass. It's been a phenomenal rod. You know, I've had it out on a couple trips and caught some good stripers on it, and we're catching some bass on it today. They got a red diamond that's higher price point, a little bit more sensitive, but I think this blue diamond is the best bang for the buck. And it's sensitive, casts great, handles well, and super light in your hand. You can fish a long time with it. Doesn't wear you out. Made that stump, crushed it. Whenever I got the A-ray, guys, I'm seeing all these fish out deep. I'm trying to be a good boy, but I don't know. Every once in a while, you just gotta pick up that A-ray. The fish was on the bottom, came flying up and nailed it. We're mixing it up today. There are some fish down there. Got him. Fish came down on it. That was cool. This fish actually came down on it out of the grass. Good fish. It's a good fish. Ate it too. Come here, buddy. There we go. There we go. Look at that. Good solid fish. I was watching that. I mean, he hit it not too far from the boat. The fish actually came down on it, which is something you don't see that often, but good solid fish. Nothing wrong with that. That was cool, man. That was cool. The old Devil Scope 666 paying off. Man, they're all over this. Come on. You got it. Just crushed it. Is that a crappie? That is a crappie. Pretty good crappie, guys. Pretty nice crappie. They're really starting to commit to this right at dark. It's just not abnormal. Man, running out of time, man. There he is. Dang it. Got off. God. Oh, God, we got him. All right, folks, it's gonna wrap it up. I mean, we're wrapping it up on a little bitty guy, but we had fun out here. Jerkbait and a jig and a little A-rig. Hindsight's 2020. I tried to make that jig work, and we caught a couple fish on it, but it just wasn't the deal. When I picked up that jerkbait, I started getting a lot more bites. One thing I will tell you about a jerkbait: got cloudy conditions, a white belly is the key. You got to play around with the sides. Today they wanted something, you know, kind of silver. Started out with the Pro Blue, they wouldn't touch it. A lot of times Pro Blue's the way to go. Also tried a Table Rock shad, had a couple looks on it, but they wanted something with some chrome black in it. It changes day to day, but one thing I do know is when you got overcast conditions, white belly is usually the deal. So thumbs up if you appreciate the content. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time.